Have you ever felt watched while driving alone at night? You're not alone. Nearly 60% of drivers admit to feeling an eerie presence or unshakable paranoia on desolate highways. And with over 1,500 unexplained accidents on rural roads reported annually, one has to wonder, what's really out there? There's something inherently unsettling about highways at night. Endless stretches of asphalt bathed in pale headlights, the silence broken only by the hum of your engine. But what if that silence hides something more sinister? From phantom hitchhikers to shadowy figures lurking in the periphery, highway horror stories tap into our primal fears of isolation and the unknown. These tales remind us that the road ahead might hold more than just a destination. It might hold your worst nightmare. Join me as we venture into the darkness of desolate roads and endless asphalt, uncovering some of the most disturbing highway horror stories that will send shivers down your spine. Buckle up. Tonight's journey is one you won't forget. It all started when I took a wrong turn on my way back from a late-night shift. I was tired, barely keeping my eyes open, and the GPS on my phone kept losing signal. The empty stretch of road before me seemed endless, shrouded in darkness. No streetlights, no other cars. Just the hum of my engine and the faint glow of my headlights cutting through the fog that seemed to rise from nowhere. I should have turned around. My gut told me to, but my exhaustion whispered otherwise. It's probably just a shortcut, I thought, gripping the wheel tighter. The clock on the dashboard read 1:13 a.m. The highway had a strange quality to it, unnervingly quiet. The fog grew thicker, curling around my car like ghostly tendrils. My headlights barely illuminated the road ahead, and I noticed something unsettling. No signs, no mile markers, nothing. It was as if this stretch of highway existed in its own little world. That's when I saw her. At first, I thought it was just the fog playing tricks on me. But no. There was a woman standing by the side of the road, her figure barely visible in the dim light. She was wearing a pale dress that looked unnervingly old-fashioned, something out of another era. Her head hung low, hair obscuring her face. I slowed down instinctively, rolling my window down slightly. "Do you need help?" I called out, my voice trembling more than I wanted it to. She didn't respond. She didn't move. I felt a cold chill crawl up my spine as I realized something wasn't right. Her figure was unnaturally still, like she was frozen in place. Then, as I inched closer, she lifted her head ever so slightly. Her eyes, if you could call them that, were hollow black pits, and her mouth stretched into a smile that was impossibly wide. I slammed on the gas. The car roared forward, tires screeching against the asphalt. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might burst out of my chest. I didn't dare look in the rearview mirror. I just kept driving, focusing on the road ahead, hoping to leave whatever that was behind me. But the highway didn't end. I glanced at the clock again. Still read 1:13 a.m. My stomach dropped. That couldn't be right. I had been driving for at least 20 minutes. Panic set in as I noticed something else. The gas gauge hadn't moved. It was as if time and distance had frozen. My phone had no signal, and the road remained the same. A never-ending stretch of black asphalt, flanked by dense fog. And then I saw her again, standing on the side of the road, just as before. Same pale dress, same unnatural stillness. But this time, as I sped past, her head snapped toward me, and I swear I heard her laugh, a low, guttural sound that echoed inside my skull. I tried everything, turning around, pulling over, even turning the car off and back on again. Nothing worked. The highway just looped, the same stretch repeating over and over. The woman appeared every few miles, closer each time. At some point, I stopped. Not because I wanted to, but because the car died. The engine sputtered and went silent, leaving me in complete darkness. My breath hitched as I fumbled for my phone, desperate for light, for anything. The moment I turned on the flashlight, I regretted it. She was standing right in front of the car, inches from the hood. Her hollow eyes stared straight into mine, and that grotesque smile stretched even wider. I don't remember screaming, but I must have, because my throat was raw when I woke up. I was back in my driveway. The car was off, keys in my lap. The clock read 6:47 a.m., and the first rays of dawn were creeping over the horizon. I thought it was over, just a vivid nightmare brought on by exhaustion. But then I noticed something on my windshield. A single, pale handprint smeared across the glass, too large and too inhuman to be mine. I sold the car the next day, but no matter where I go, no matter how far I drive, I still see her sometimes, standing by the side of the road, waiting. The clock on my dashboard read 2:17 a.m. I had been driving for hours on a desolate stretch of highway, desperate to make it to my sister's place before dawn. The road stretched endlessly in front of me, flanked by thick woods on either side. The only company I had was the hum of my engine and the occasional flicker of my headlights on the faded yellow lines. I hadn't seen another car in over an hour. It was the kind of isolation that gnaws at you, making you hyper-aware of every shadow, every sound. To keep myself awake, I flipped through radio stations, but they were all static. Great. The GPS on my phone had long lost signal, but I wasn't too worried. I knew this highway, or at least I thought I did. Then I saw it. Up ahead, in the middle of the road, was a figure. At first, I thought it was an animal, a deer maybe, but as I got closer, my stomach nodded. It was a man. He stood perfectly still, his face obscured by the hood of a dark jacket, his hands hanging limply at his sides. I slowed down, my heart pounding in my chest. He didn't move. "Don't stop," I whispered to myself, gripping the wheel tighter. "Just keep going." But as I veered to the side to pass him, his head snapped up, and I swear his eyes locked with mine through the windshield. They glowed faintly, like the reflection of an animal's eyes in the dark. My foot instinctively slammed on the gas, and I sped past him, the car lurching forward as the tires screeched against the asphalt. In the rearview mirror, he was gone. I told myself it was just my imagination. Maybe he stepped off the road. Maybe it was just a trick of the shadows. But deep down, I knew better. My hands were shaking as I gripped the wheel, the adrenaline making my chest ache. I drove for another mile, maybe two, when I saw the figure again. This time, he was standing on the shoulder of the road, his back to me. Same dark jacket, same unnerving stillness. It didn't make sense. I had been going 80 miles per hour. There was no way he could have gotten ahead of me. I didn't slow down this time. I sped past him, refusing to look too long. But as I passed, I caught a glimpse of his face in the corner of my eye. It wasn't a face at all. It was just nothing, a void where features should have been. I screamed and nearly lost control of the car, swerving wildly before correcting myself. The highway seemed to stretch even longer now, the darkness pressing in on me from all sides. I wanted to turn around to take a different route, but the road offered no exits, no side streets. Just mile after mile of unbroken asphalt. And then the worst part came. My headlights illuminated something ahead. A car, abandoned in the middle of the road. Its hazard lights blinked weakly, casting eerie flashes of orange across the surroundings. I pulled up slowly, my breath catching in my throat. The car was old, rusted, and looked like it had been sitting there for years. The doors were open, and the interior was covered in grime. But what caught my attention was the license plate. It was my license plate. Panic clawed at my chest as I stumbled out of my car, my legs trembling. I walked to the abandoned vehicle, barely able to breathe. The keys were still in the ignition, the same set I had dangling in my car right now. Suddenly, a noise broke through the silence. A slow, rhythmic tapping. It was coming from the woods. I turned, my flashlight catching glimpses of the trees. My heart thundered as the tapping grew louder, closer. Then I saw them, figures, dozens of them standing just beyond the tree line, all identical to the man I had seen before. Their hollow faces turned toward me, their glowing eyes staring without blinking. I bolted back to my car and floored it, the tires kicking up gravel as I sped away. I didn't care where I was going anymore. I just needed to get away. The abandoned car, the figures, the impossible familiarity of it all. It didn't make sense. The road felt endless, like I was driving in circles. My fuel gauge was dipping lower and lower, but I didn't dare stop. And then, just as the needle hit empty, I saw the figure again, standing directly in my path. I swerved, the car spinning out of control before slamming into something hard. My head hit the steering wheel and everything went black. When I woke up, I was still on the highway, but my car was gone. I was standing in the middle of the road, wearing the same dark jacket I had seen on the figure. My hands felt strange, cold, lifeless. I turned to look at my reflection in a cracked side mirror lying on the asphalt, and my stomach dropped. There was no face, just a void. Now I stand here waiting. For what? I don't know. Maybe for you.